Hey folks, everything new under the sun. All right, there's a lot to cover here, and I'm probably going to forget some of the things that I want to cover. But we are looking at the very last days, obviously. Things are really coming together. And I don't even believe this is the four horses riding yet. I think this is the warm up, the warning to Christians to say, wake up. Stuff is getting close, real close, and it's going to get exponentially worse from here on in. There's a reader comment that I'm going to take a look at the end of the video that is asking about when I think the economic collapse will happen. So we'll get to that and I'll share some thoughts. But first of all, let's look at a couple of things here as it relates to the current events. And things are ratcheting up, I should say, quite significantly, I believe. So this is allisrael.com. And this is kind of the main truth that you got to remember. Everything that's happening in the world, the loss of freedoms, the wars, rumors of wars, the economic trouble, the food supply, the supply chain stuff, the economic, the interest to move to a digital ID, digital currency. This is all spoken of in the Bible. And it's all part of battling not against flesh and blood, but against spirits and spiritual forces in high places. Battle is not just about flesh and blood. Ukrainian religious leaders take aim at Putin, likening him to the Antichrist. So interesting about the religious leaders in Ukraine speaking about that. This is a Zero Hedge article, and it's about U.S. is sharing real-time intelligence with Kiev. Russia-Ukraine talks end in agreement for humanitarian corridors. The biggest thing, though, I think that has happened today is the suggestion that they're moving to more of a hot war. Here's the comments, and we're going to take a look at this. Also on Thursday, the head of Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, Sergei Narishkin, issued a series of bombshell statements which may reveal Moscow's broader aims in the war concerning how Russia sees its ultimate security. Narishkin said that for us, this is no longer a Cold War. Now, hear that. For us, this is no longer a Cold War with the West, but a hot war. They are saying it is a hot war. It is a live, conventional war, if you will, with the West that they are battling right now. It is no longer a Cold War where things are happening in the background or nothing's really going on. But this is a hot war now. He said in the rare statement, Russia now has a real chance to put an end to the war that has been waged in the post-Soviet space for 30 years. According to him, Russia thinks this is their chance to have the final battle with the United States and finally take back the land that they believe is owed. So that's a big deal. And there's a picture of the quote-unquote peace talks that they were talking about. Meanwhile, U.S. defense officials have confirmed that the news agencies that the Pentagon does not have boots on the ground, but there is now more and more weapon supplies going in there. A U.S. company is providing ammunition there, etc. All right, let's take a look at some other details here. This is interesting. Macron, and he has been kind of one of the main leaders having a call, almost every day, past several days with Putin. It seems he seems to be sticking his head up above the rest of the politicians, being the most vocal. Whereas Biden's nowhere to be seen, honestly speaking. He's not doing a whole lot. He had a State of the Union. He's working on other things, I guess. And he is not the kind of the world leading figure at this point. Who is this Macron? And he, it keeps coming back to him as it relates to speaking with Russia. What does Macron say after a phone call with Russia? He says, prepare for the worst. Now, this is a politician saying, after speaking with Putin, prepare for the worst. This is a politician. I cannot overstate that enough. Why? Because politicians are very calm, and they don't want to say too much. They don't want to rile up the public. They don't want to create fear in the public, generally speaking. They want to calm things down, bring down the narrative, bring down the temperature of things. When your politicians are saying, prepare for the worst, that is a time to perk up your ears and say, this could really be it. I got to say, people. As I said before, I do think we get to the brink of World War III before there is some great big agreement and the Antichrist figure steps up. Now, I have spoken about Macron in the past. He's an interesting character, very interesting character, and maybe I'll do another video specific to him. But again, he has another phone call with Putin. His head is popping up on the world stage as trying to deal with the situation. Macron held his third phone call with Putin, coming also on the start of the second week of war. A statement from Macron's office said there was a 90-minute call, but by all accounts, it didn't go well in terms of any prospects for an immediate cessation of hostilities. Macron aide told AFP that the French leader then called President Zelensky. After a lengthy talk with Putin, France is said to be preparing for the worst. Now, you got to admit, the worst likely means a potential nuclear exchange. I don't know what the worst would be other than that, and that's very much on the table, even out of Russia's mouth. And Russia is calling this now a hot war with the West, effectively. That's how they see this. So look for the introduction of nuclear weapons. I think you have to, at this point, be prepared for it. I spoke of the garbage can cellars, which are excellent for keeping root vegetables over winter, over any season, because of it keeps them at the same temperature in the ground all the time. And it's a great way to not need electricity to store vegetables. But obviously, they also work as a good Faraday cage for electronics, etc., that might be susceptible to an EMP or to a nuclear blast if it's in your range. Now, I don't think there's a chance of anything happening anywhere near where I am. But that being said, you know what? If it does happen and I wasn't prepared, then I am completely out of luck. The chances are small, but at least I would be ready in that case. And so you need to be ready, I think, for that sort of scenario. Have communications equipment, FRS radios, etc. Basic things so that you can talk from house to house, even within your own local neighborhood, and get some update on what's happening. A lot of the FRSs have a weather channel on them, so you can listen to weather and updates. That may or may not work at that point in time, but having alternate communication methods and multiple communication pieces of electronics or otherwise, and some that are safe and secure, is a big deal. And I don't have just one of each piece of communication equipment. I have multiple, and I think it's key. And with FRSs, they're so cheap. Family radio service is what they are, just the kind of the walkie-talkies. Very cheap, so you can get multiple sets. All right, so Macron, very interesting guy. He says France is preparing for the worst. That is a big statement. There was nothing Putin said that reassured us. Macron reportedly told Putin, "You are lying to yourself," while explaining that the continued invasion will only cost Russia dearly. So again, I think that's a setup for a nuclear war, to be absolutely honest with you. And Macron, so where has he popped up recently? Again, well, as it relates to the Temple Mount. This is from gospelnewsnetwork.org. Why did Emmanuel Macron just make a surprisingly passionate plea for Jews to retain control of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem? Now, again, if Macron is a valid and potential choice option for an Antichrist figure leader, it would make sense that he's young, that he appeared on the world stage recently, and also that he is in some support of Jews being in the land and on the Temple Mount, because when this Antichrist leader comes to power, he's going to allow the Jews to set up their third temple, and he's going to sit on the throne in the third temple as God, as if he were God. So it makes sense that he would support them and not be completely against the Jewish people. It says, and this is recent news, by the way. This news article is March the 2nd, 2022. Macron's speech said, like you, I am concerned about the United Nations resolution on Jerusalem, which continues to be to deliberately and against all evidence remove Jewish terminology from the Temple Mount. You know my attachment to Jerusalem, so he has an attachment to Jerusalem, where I went several times as president or before becoming one. Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the Jewish people. I've never stopped saying this. This in no way precludes recognizing and respecting the attachment of other religions, which, again, that's a key idea and requirement for the Antichrist, to kind of recognize all religions. And it is in the spirit that I myself walked through the Old City in 2020 and visited each of the holy places. So remember, this Antichrist is going to be bringing together the whole world under a new faith, where all world religions effectively become one. And at some point, they ultimately worship this Antichrist figure, because he will require it at the midpoint of the 7-year period, which I think we could be a couple of months from entering into. Emmanuel Macron has a fiery speech delivered through a French Prime Minister that calls for the Jews to retain control of the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. So again, Macron, a very interesting guy, talking about the Temple Mount, talking about Israel, and apparently being one of the main figures trying to diffuse the situation in Russia. All for his, going towards his resume, which makes him a very, very interesting person to pay attention to. All right. I want to read a comment here, and it is from, Patrick. Patrick says, thanks, Micah, for sharing. What's your estimate on the when the economy collapses? It says a lot of well-known financial experts have tried to speculate, and it never ends up happening. I believe it's close to happening based on everything you've laid out. I know as a Christian we are not to be overcome with fear, but I have to be honest, I'm feeling overwhelmed and don't feel all comfortable with where my preps are. And a quick comment there. I don't think anybody knows when the economy will collapse, and I too. The bigger things get on the world stage, the more worrying they get, the less I feel that my preps are adequate. I'm kind of ready for like a hurricane, some short duration event. But when you look at events happening around the world, my goodness, we need to be prepped and at least in mind for 6 months, a year, if not more, of severely taxing times. That's the real potential where we are right now. And so I'll agree. You look at what things you have got ready, whether you're a prepper or not. Do you have a little bit of cash? Do you have a little bit of food? And none of it seems adequate at this point when you're looking at some of the real situations coming upon us if we do have nuclear war. Now, again, I think we get to the brink of it, and it doesn't come to fruition, but there could be some there. I don't think the Bible details enough, if there is any significant damage done before an Antichrist figure brings quote-unquote peace to the world, a temporary peace, obviously. He says, I know based on your videos you have done that we should expect a grid down scenario. I think a cyber attack is very, very possible. And I think solar panels are wise to have. Even you don't have to have 10,000 watts worth of solar panels, but a couple hundred watts worth of solar panels and a battery system where you can charge up your devices, simple communications devices, is smart. And having something, again, that is maybe protected from electromagnetic pulse or something else is a very real concern. I don't know if it's going to happen. The likelihood is that it's not going to happen, but it's now a very real concern with Russia threatening nuclear weapons, and Macron basically saying, expect the worst case scenario. I think you have to look at that and say, you know what, we may end up in that case. It may happen that all of my preparations, all of my solar panels, batteries, all these, even the food I have stored, it may end up that may all be lost from theft, from destruction, from whatever. At the end of the day, we need to recognize that, the Lord will provide ultimately for us, and we need to trust in Him and have faith in that. And at the end of the day, we do place our lives in God's hands, and we need to recognize and have faith and trust in Him for these things. It says it would come, and that COVID would be considered a walk in the park compared to grid going down. Yes, I believe it. You look at sort of the idea of a Mad Max situation, and when people get desperate, when they get hungry, after the first couple of days of having no food, people will get desperate. They will be roving around in gangs with baseball bats, whatever they have. They don't want to. They don't want to be breaking into other people's houses or knocking on doors, but they'll be desperate. They'll be hungry. And they will get violent, as people do when they get desperate. If they have a family to feed, there will be violence and theft and illegal activity happening, even where you are, even if you're out in the boonies. It says, by the way, just viewed my energy bill, fell out of my chair, a 50% increase. Yeah, we're looking at gasoline, fuel bills, where it costs nearly $100 to fill up the tank in our car. Canadian dollars. That's a lot of money. That means we have to make a real decision effectively to limit our driving severely. Well, I won't go into anything there, but this is a real time where we need to be cutting bills out and, paying off debt. And that's, paying off credit card debt and that sort of thing. And that's something very real that I struggle with as well. Paying down debt, getting rid of subscriptions to your Netflix, your Disney Plus, maybe putting your cell phone bill on pause, or your monthly cell phone bill, maybe going to a pay-as-you-go cell phone, or going to a lower plan to limit your exposure to potential scenario where you don't have income. That's a very real issue at this point in time. I guess I'm not totally surprised. It goes on, as we were warned that this was coming. Yeah, we are warned. I talk about this every day, and I am still surprised myself that we are seeing what we're seeing, to be absolutely honest with you. I think as you're watching this and it hasn't happened yet, you sort of think, oh, it's going to happen like a movie before our eyes, but it's not really going to affect me. And then when it starts affecting you, then you're like, oh, okay, this is real. This is going down, and stuff is happening. And, it's not going to be easy. And the Bible never said it was easy. We just, assumed it would be easy for us because we hadn't felt it yet. He says gas is now at $3.64 in Minnesota, wondering if we should expect $6 by summer. And he says, thanks, Mike. Well, I don't know about gas prices, but I heard it said, I think it was gas is $110 a barrel right now for, Brent light crude, whatever. And I've heard it estimated that it could easily go to $150, $200, just simply because supply and demand. The supply can't catch up to the lack of Russian oil in the economy. That means for the immediate future, fuel will skyrocket until the suppliers can increase their production. And that's going to there's a significant ramp up there. It's probably not even 6 months. It's probably 8 months or 12 months out until they can ramp up supply and get the trucks moving to get that out. So that's a very real situation where fuel could double. This is why I burn firewood for home heating. I can always, trees are all around us. I can always find things to burn. I can't always go to the gas station necessarily and get gas or get heating oil, especially as the price skyrockets. This is a big deal. It will ultimately affect the price of firewood, but I don't think as much. And certainly at the end of the day, I can get free wood slabs. I can burn couches and chairs if I need to. I mean, there's, if it gets real bad, there's things you can do. There's always something to burn around, but there isn't always fuel. So it's getting real, folks. To be completely honest with you, I am astounded myself. I am amazed myself. I don't quite believe it, and I got to pinch myself to see the sort of news and the rhetoric going around. But the world leaders, Macron, saying prepare for the worst. They're preparing for the worst in France. That means it's a very real situation for you and I. Be prepared. Get your hearts ready. Do you know the Lord Jesus Christ is your personal Savior? He died and He rose again 2,000 years ago. He paid for my sin and your sin. He's coming soon. But before that, I think are really hard times coming. You know what? The rest of the world has been through hard times their whole life. They know what hard times are. We in the Western world, we have no idea. We are living fat, dumb, and happy, as I like to say. We have no idea what hard times mean. And so, if our internet is down for 15 minutes, that's hard times for us. You wait. If the internet goes down for 48 hours, wait and see how people will be panicking at that point in the Western world. We can't handle any sort of system being down. We've never had to for the last 40, 50, 60 years. We've always had everything handed on a silver platter. We've always had electricity. We've always had phone, self-service, access to easy and cheap fuel, outside of a hurricane or two here or there. But those are very location specific. And so energy supplies rush in from other places. But when you have a global supply chain that is being shut down, just like it did in COVID, and now it is being continued, the global supply chain is being shut down with this war, effectively, then you need to be prepared. You need to trust in the Lord, have faith in the Lord, and do what you can with what little money you have to be prepared for these times. And at the end of the day, our life is in the Lord's hands. And I think that's where I got to leave it. Thanks for watching, folks, and thanks for the comments. We'll see you in the next video.